Welcome to Doctrine and Devotion, a podcast that explores Christian faith and practice from a Reformed Baptist perspective. My name is Joe Thorne. I'm the lead pastor of Redeemer Fellowship in St. Charles, Illinois. And today, got a buddy of ours on the podcast, back on the podcast. We're really excited. Johnny B. Good, or Jason B. Alligood. How's it going, bro?
Hey, it's going well, man. How you doing, Joe?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Glad we get to hang out, It's even if it's virtual,
Yep. Yeah, it's always best to hang out in person. We always have a good time, but this is a second best.
Well, I'm going to have to make another trip down there because I want more of that fried chicken. And at that place that you took me to. That was awesome.
Yeah. So, Time. Thyme.
That's what it's called.
It's a good place.
Okay, so if you're in Peoria, Illinois, go to Time and get their fried chicken thighs.
Yeah, the Nashville spicy thighs are amazing.
And what else did we get with that?
I think we maybe just got the fries, and I can't remember what else comes with it. But
I don't know. Everything was great. Was it corn? I don't know.
Yeah.
Man, that was a good time. But man, fellowship, real fellowship of the saints, encouraging each other, listening, praying. All that's good. Enjoying cigars, whatever you got.
Yeah.
How are things going down there, Peoria?
Yeah, it's going pretty well. I mean, ministry continues to go well. We've always, every church, as you know, has its issues, but we keep seeing more and more new folks on Sunday mornings, and looking to perhaps hire another staff guy because I have brother elders. There's only 3 of us right now, but with 200 folks or so, that gets challenging. So we've got a couple of potential elder candidates in the wings, and about 4 potential deacon candidates in the wings, and we again this hopeful staff guy, and it's gonna make my life a little easier, at least for we'll see, but it's good. So
I love it.
Yeah, things are going well, man. Yeah.
I love it. If you guys are unfamiliar with Jason, you shouldn't be, and I don't think you will be for long. Jason, you are the pastor, or the preaching pastor, senior pastor, lead pastor, whatever the title is. But you are the preaching pastor at Fellowship Bible Church in Peoria. And how long have you been there now?
It'll be 10 years in a month.
Nice. Ooh, 10-year anniversary.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh, and it's October. It's Pastor Appreciation Month.
Yeah, that's right. Right. Do your folks do stuff for you for Pastor Appreciation?
They used to go ham, and I just told them, don't do that.
Yeah, same here.
So they would take up a special thing all month, and they would give us, and I just said, I know that you appreciate me. I don't like standing there, and it's just the whole thing is awkward. But, so listen, if you want to say hi, write me a note. Awesome.
Yes,
that's great. You don't need to get me a gift or anything. So we just shut it down. Same way. And and some people still they'll put a bottle of bourbon on my desk, or a cigar, or whatever. Yeah. Or I got one of our members bought me Bigfoot socks. She knows Bigfoot, and so she's like,
look at that.
She got me this toy Bigfoot that shoots balls out of its mouth. It's pretty cool. So
that's amazing.
Yeah. We get little stuff like that, but Pastor Appreciation Month is here, and just listen, man. I appreciate you as a friend and as a fellow pastor. I mean, I have
the pastors brother, by the way.
The pastors at Redeemer, the elders at Redeemer, those are my pastors, right, in the formal sense. But I'm just grateful that I have other men that are godly and kind enough to actually speak into my life and encourage me, and I count you as one of those.
Hey, same here, man. And you know what, Joe? Just being able to text or call you, and knowing as busy as you are that you respond fairly quickly, and I love that, man. It is one of the greatest encouragements of my heart to have guys like yourself in my life. And same thing, my brother pastors, my brother elders are my pastors, and they do hold me accountable, and they do encourage my soul. I just went with one of my elders to FTC last week, and it was just such a great time to be with him and be encouraged. So.
Yeah, we've gone in the past to some conferences, and then everybody's so busy, and we always maintain at least.
Well, this guy's retired, so that's why he's able to go.
Well, that's great, because I was going to say we have at least 50% of our elders are volunteer or lay elders, and we try to maintain that at least that much. But that means most of them have gigs. Like they have full-time jobs.
Exactly.
Typically, and so they're limited on what they can do like long term. If we can plan it enough in advance, they're all game. But those are really good. Now, Jason, you got your doctorate. You earned your PhD from Midwestern Baptist Theological Seminary, a sponsor of the podcast this month, by the way. Thank you, Midwestern.
It's great.
We love you guys. And what was your thesis?
So I studied systematic theology, and I worked on this idea of what we call in theology escalated eschatology, that we're not headed back to the garden, we're headed to something greater. In fact, I would hold that, along with guys like Meredith Kline and others, that in creation, God intended something greater if Adam had not failed. I mean, that's in the Confessions as well.
That's old.
Yeah.
That's old school theology, right?
Yeah, and so what is this idea in the Westminster or the Second London of, life being held out to Adam? Well, he was alive, so, something greater than that was to come. And so I really worked on that in two ways: through the anthropological idea of Adam and the second Adam, and Christ really being the protological true man, that he was the image that we were to be made in even before the foundations of the world, because he's the lamb that was slain before the foundations of the world. And then also that creation was also on an eschatological trajectory. Again, many people have written on this over the centuries, but that had Adam fulfilled his mandate to have dominion, to fill the earth, it would be full of God's glory, that it would be what God would have intended for a glorious earth, which we know now, of course, after the fall, comes through Christ and comes through the new creation, which we are already but not yet a part of, and then that new creation, still the not yet, we're still awaiting. So, of course, then you get into all the questions of plan A, plan B. Well, it's always plan A, right? God doesn't have a plan B, but right. Just that seed is planted in our minds from the very beginning, and that is the trajectory. So that's what I wrote on, essentially. So
that's awesome, and I know that that's really what I wanted to pick your brain about today and talk about a little bit, is the concept of glory, glorification, and see where that takes us.
Sure.
But I did want to ask you. You said something, and it made me think of something Keller said, and I don't think he's the first to say it. But what do you think of this statement, or at least the idea? This is not a quote, but it's basically what is said. It began in the garden, but it ends in a city. Because I've never liked that. But maybe that's a shortcoming in my thinking, or maybe it is a misunderstanding of what's meant by it. But if all that's meant by it is like, what started was small and what's ending is greater, then I'm for that. But what do you think about that statement? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, you know what? It's been a while since I've heard that statement, but it rings a bell with me. And I'm not sure if Keller is the one who said it, but certainly he's the one I attach it to. Yeah, I think without really hearing him exegete that statement more, I think there's something to that. I think that the garden, and many, many people have said this whole temple idea of the garden, that the garden is actually a place of worship. You see Levitical language used later in the Pentateuch that is tied to Adam's mandate, and so I think there is this sort of prophet, priest, and king sort of idea with the first Adam. I think I understand where that's going, in the sense of that maybe, again, I can't know what Keller means exactly by it, but there's a development into something greater, that the garden would maybe have become the city had Adam not failed. I don't know. It's interesting. The celestial city, heaven coming down to earth. Right. I don't pretend to know like what God had in mind pre-fall, in that sense, but it's an interesting statement nonetheless.
No, it is, and again, it all depends on what's meant. And again, I read it years ago, and
sure,
I know we don't exactly know, but it gets to this issue of glory. What people popularly call heaven, right? The eternal state.
Mm-hmm.
We don't. So, and like the default has oftentimes been either a hard, rigid literalist interpretation of everything, so that it's a very strange
Mm-hmm.
place. But at the same time, I hear this like, well, we don't know much. We don't know anything. We really don't know what it's going to be like. And
Right.
so they're at the popular level for sure. And in my experience of of reading, current authors, there's not a lot on glory. There's just,
Mm-hmm.
is there not a lot on glory because we don't have a lot
Mm-hmm.
of information biblically, or is there not a lot on glory because we're dumb? You answer. You tell us what that is.
Yeah. Well, I think there's probably is a lot on glory in the sense of God's glory.
Right.
You think
Yep.
about the popularity of John Piper
Mm-hmm.
and his and those kinds of things at the popular level. Um, I think about the biblical theological writings that have come out a lot through. Crossway has those short biblical theology books, and a lot of it has to do with the glory of God or the kingdom and sort of that trajectory that we're on. That helps us sort of frame what we're talking about when we talk about glorification or glory or heaven,
Yeah, glory
because
of God, I get like that. There's
yeah,
tons on
sure,
that,
right, yeah, yeah,
especially in the Reformed tradition.
yeah, yeah, and that just frames, I think, for us though this idea of you think about First Timothy, God dwells in unapproachable light and these kinds of things. So how am I going to be fit for God's glory? And I think that's where those concepts cross is God's glory and glory itself in the sense of um, our walking in the presence of God. And so you go back to the garden and you think about this idea of God walking in the cool of the day, which would have been the normal experience for Adam and Eve. They weren't surprised by God's presence, but they
Right.
were hiding themselves because they knew what that meant. And so again, you get into this idea of what is God's presence, even in that sense. And so, all that to say, I don't want to get into that too much. Maybe we can a little bit later, but this idea of glory is tied to God and His presence and His beauty and His dwelling in unapproachable light. So, how do we become fit for that? And then, yeah, what is that? Then that presence that comes upon the renewed earth. I do believe the earth will be renewed, not destroyed and recreated. That heaven coming down to earth idea, the new Jerusalem coming and dwelling on earth. I mean, and yeah, how literal is that? Or is it just simply this idea of the glory of God coming to dwell once again on earth? And
Right.
yeah, so that idea, I don't think, and you and I have talked about this, the idea of glorification itself. What does it mean for humanity to be glorified? There's not been a lot written on that in recent years.
That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I've told you that before. That Bernard Ram was the last like full treatment in 1963, and that's out of print and almost impossible to get a hold of,
Hmm.
unless you're willing to pay $200 for it.
I'm not.
Um, no, me either. Even and I'm researching this, and
This is
I'm
your
not willing to
gig,
pay,
and you're like,
yeah,
ah.
I'm not willing to pay that. I can get it on Internet Archive. You can get it,
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, but there has been a recent book by Graham Cole where he kind of introduces this topic, and in his introduction, it's like almost perfectly my research, which is that there hasn't been anything written on it. There's one gal named Haley Jacobs Goranson, I think is her name, on the idea of being made into the image of the Son, which is super important, Romans 8. But even in reaching out to her, she's like, yeah, there's not enough
Hmm.
written on this topic. So, and I would maybe, ask you, Joe, it seems like even this idea is not something we even preach about a whole lot as pastors and preachers. So, why do you think that is? If we could
Yeah.
dialogue a little bit.
Right. I am curious about the why. Like that's like I just wrote this down. Like, but why?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Why isn't there enough scholarly articles, treatises, whatever,
mm-hmm,
on it? Why isn't there more preaching on it? And I think that I do think part of it is because there isn't a lot of explicit detail about what it's
mm-hmm,
like, and so then taking the material that we do have and getting to the principle level and then expanding on it feels a bit reckless, I think, to a lot of pastors. Like,
Yeah,
we
it's a
don't like
great point.
speculative theology. And, it's like, I've heard pastors saying things like, well, you can have pets like dinosaurs and you can, and it's like, bro, like, okay, just stop it with
Uh,
that. I mean, it's fine. It's fun. It's cool. But like, don't stand in the
right.
pulpit and then say that
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Like my kids would ask, like, we would talk about heaven, right? And they understood that heaven is not in the clouds, like, I mean, the eternal state. And they would be like, well, what's it like? And so we would just talk about it, right? And it's like, well, imagine all of creation perfect, no death, no loss, no sorrow, just peace and righteousness. And I believe there's going to be work. There's going to be food. I think
Absolutely.
it's all going to be there. I think
Sure.
it's what we're made for. It's going to be
Yeah.
paradise, like legit paradise, not weird paradise with a bunch of virgins and like all that nonsense of other religions. I mean, like real paradise. And
Yeah.
and when you start talking to kids about that, they're like, "Whoa, like that's amazing. That sounds beautiful." And then but that's as far as we really go with them. And in the pulpit, it's largely probably the same. If you're an expository preacher and you're going through books of the Bible, and I went through the book of Revelation, took us a year. We've done all sorts of things. We hit these, and I tend to focus on the big picture of the eternal state, and then what that means for us today. And so there's just not. I guess in short, I would say the fear of getting into speculative theology is a hindrance. The lack of material to cover and explore, especially when you're not intended to interpret much of that material literally,
Right.
like say from the book of Revelation. So I think that's probably a part of the reason. But I wonder if there's more to it than that even. I wonder, is there a theological short-circuiting that has happened to us? Because I think that if we longed for glory, we would be preaching about it a lot more.
Yeah.
We hit the glory of God, but glory that we share in the eternal state,
Yeah.
if we longed for it, I think we would hit it. And I think the problem is deeply, people today are yearning for it without knowing what they're yearning
Yeah.
for.
That's so good.
And
Yeah.
so, but because there's some kind of short circuit going on, like it's almost as if we're hungry, but we don't know we're hungry. We just don't feel good. And it's like, so we don't know if I eat something, I'll feel better. That this is
Yeah.
like, something's wrong. The world is a dark, chaotic place. We need freedom and deliverance and shalom. We don't know that the answer
Yeah.
is glory.
Yeah. No, that's super helpful, and it brings a few things to mind. I think you're exactly right. We have to be super careful to not speak where the Bible doesn't speak. I think speculation in the academic realm. So I'm actually going to be giving a paper at ETS that's extremely speculative, and I say that in the paper, like this is a very speculative idea here. Others have written on it, so it's not like I'm speculating in a corner by myself. But
Right.
but
It's
in
also
the
academic,
pulpit,
though, right?
right, exactly. That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. Yeah, it's in the academic realm versus getting up in the pulpit and saying, "Hey, we can fly in heaven" or whatever, But yeah, it makes me think of a few things. One, I think that we stop short of glorification because that's not where we are. So we preach on justification and sanctification, which is absolutely right, and we should. In fact,
That's good.
most old systematic theologies sort of just assume glorification in the category of sanctification, which isn't a problem. I mean, it is the end of sanctification. It is but it's not dependent upon sanctification. So Romans 8 tells us that those who have been justified will be glorified, but we also know that we're being conformed to the image of the Son. So it's not that sanctification is absent from the conversation, but our sanctification or our glorification is not dependent upon our sanctification. Our sanctification is an evidence of our justification, but I would also say it should be a forward-looking hope as well in regard to our glorification. Like I cannot. It's like Romans 7, the classic Reformed interpretation. Like I cannot be free of this body of sin.
Yeah.
Who will save me from this body of sin? In other words, Paul is looking forward, I think, to glorification there.
Right.
That this body is not evil; it wants evil, so it needs to be redeemed ultimately. So my soul has been redeemed. My body still is waiting to be redeemed. So I think that's what he's talking about there. And then what does he get into right after that? He gets
Yeah.
into sanctification, Romans 8, right? Hey, we're not condemned, but hey, you better live according to the Spirit, not according to the flesh, because this flesh still needs to be redeemed. So that's one way I think about it, is and I'm not trying to accuse you or me of doing this, but it's just like we're on this earth. So
Yeah.
justification, I need to know that I have been forgiven of my sins and that I've been given Christ's righteousness. And as a result of that, I'm being sanctified, though positionally I am. Of course, we know that.
Right.
Which again, another aspect I think as well, if you're thinking about older authors, they're thinking about sanctification as glorification positionally,
Yeah.
not necessarily just progressively.
Right.
I actually prefer to speak about progressive sanctification as growth in holiness, as so as not to get mixed up on what sanctification really is, but in the sense of already position.
That's a good point. I think like that's just it's helpful to, because it's a reason, it's an explanation, it's not an excuse.
Yeah.
It's just like, no, this is, we live now. We
Yes.
we
Yeah.
have nothing apart from justification, and as those who are justified, we crave to be better. We're hungry for that, and therefore, like, the most immediate thing, application, is growth in faith and godliness. So that
Right.
makes sense. Like, that's why we would tend to focus on those things, not so much on the future. But maybe that's because we don't understand the value of a future hope for present day stuff. But anyways, that was your first one. What
No,
was your-
that's good, man. That's really helpful. Then I think there are two features of the eternal state that we can really, uh, take hold of and find hope in, which is the absence of sin, without there ever being any, fall again. And so, we talk about Adam and Eve. Well, let me give you the second one first. So the absence of sin, but the unending presence of God as well. That we will be in God's presence, dwelling in His beauty and in His glorious light forever, without end. So those two features of the eternal state, I think, are really important for us to sort of hang our hats on. So we talk about the beatific vision, 1 John 3. When we see Him, we will be like Him, which is transformative. Somehow our view of God, and obviously this is God's work in us, somehow our view of Christ, the beauty of God in the face of Jesus, as some people have said, that's transformative. Like, God's going to use that somehow, I don't really understand how, to transform me into the true image of Christ. And there's all kinds of questions about theosis and what does it mean for us to be, united to Christ in such a way that we participate in the divine life. I'm trying to write some on that as well, and that's very difficult because we don't believe, as the Eastern Orthodox do, that we actually become a part of God. But somehow we're connected to that deity. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's
First Peter. Wait, hang on. You said theosis. Explain to our
Oh yeah,
listeners.
theosis is the idea of deification, that we will somehow participate in the divine life of God.
Yeah.
And again, there's Eastern Orthodox renderings of that. There's Roman Catholic renderings of that. There's Protestant, believe it or not, Protestant
Yeah.
renderings of that.
It's like what is it? The life of God in the soul of man.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
It's,
Right. Yeah.
partakers of the divine nature.
Partakers of the divine nature. First Peter. Yeah. Or Second Peter. Peter says it somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We know he says it.
We know.
Everybody
that's
chill
right.
out. We just don't know where.
Even authors in the Bible say, as was written somewhere. They don't even give the author. But anyway, so I think those two features of the total absence of sin, which we can't even conceive of, Joe.
Yeah.
We can't even conceive of what that is, man. That is because we're so, even as believers, with this fleshly principle we still have, we're still burdened by it. And again, we think about Paul in Romans 7, like, I want to be, man, like, it almost brings me to tears, brother. Like, I want to be rid of this, man.
Yeah.
And that is the hope of glory. That is what we can get excited about. Is like, man, so going back to what I was saying earlier, Adam was without sin, but with the potential to sin. And I can't remember all the Latin for it. I have to look it up. But
Non posse peccare, non
yeah,
posse
not Pascari. Yeah, exactly. All that stuff, which again shows up my dissertation because it makes you look smart. Makes you look like R.C. Sproul. I just need a chalkboard to write it all out. But then in heaven, it is no sin without the possibility of sinning. And that is because of Christ, because we are ultimately going to be conformed to his
Yeah.
image, who was tempted in every way as we are, yet without sin. So there is that sort of earthly hope of Christ's identification with us. But then what about our identification with him in the future? That is what we're going to be. Man, that's so hopeful. So I think those two
Yeah.
features, and then so you add to that, like being in the presence of God and his glory by way of Christ. So I don't know quite how to conceive of all of this. I think we will perceive the glory of God the Father as he is in his spirit, that light emanating from the throne, whatever that is, and the presence of the Holy Spirit in that way. But we will see Jesus. We like when I'm giving out the elements for the Lord's table, I remind our people, like God, like Christ gave us something tangible, like a piece of bread to hold, because we'll be able to hold him in
That's
a
good.
glorified body. And so as he is present with us in the supper, we recognize that this is just bread, but we will one day be in his presence, and we can reach out and touch him in his glorified body,
Yeah.
which will be our glorified body, because
Mm.
when we see him, like him. So there's all kinds of facets of this that we can get excited about and worship God for. Sorry, I'm preaching.
Preach away, man. We need it. I mean, I need it.
Yeah,
This one of the things that I hit hard at Redeemer. There's every preacher kind of has the things that
sure.
resonate with who they are,
Yeah,
and that seem to be important to their people, right? So you listen, and good or bad, whatever, right? Every preacher has them, right? Whether it's Dever,
hmm,
MacArthur, Piper, think well-known preachers. Uh, they'll all kind of say, well, I basically talk about this all the time. Like, this is my thing.
yeah, yeah.
But one of the things that I tend to hit on a fair bit is the idea of becoming. And I use that
Mm,
word because that is an essential theme of our salvation and redemption. We are
amen.
becoming what we are meant to be, what we were created to
Yes,
be.
yes.
Sanctification is about becoming. Redemption is about becoming a child of God, becoming mature in the faith. Entering into glory. And this idea of, like, everybody knows that we are not what we're supposed to be. Everybody.
Yeah.
It's why people work out. It's why
Hmm.
it's why people read books, right? Like, whether
Sure.
some of it's for entertainment, but to
Yeah.
learn, to grow, like, we need to become more than we are. And it's why
Hmm.
plastic surgery, like, people address it with
Hmm.
superficial means,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
we understand I am not what I'm supposed to be. And if
Hmm.
we understand, like, okay, so glory then is that final stage where we become what we're meant
Hmm.
to truly be, that then becomes attractive. But my question is, how does that future promise have any impact on today? Because,
Hmm.
like, okay, it sounds good, so I'm holding on.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
Paul talks about the resurrection like it's changing him
Hmm.
today. But it doesn't
Yes.
happen until he's, gonna be beheaded, and then he's got
Yeah.
he's got to
Yeah.
wait through
Yeah.
the intermediate state.
Yeah.
So,
That's right.
how
Yeah.
does this promise of our ultimate becoming, who we're supposed to be, before the face of God, have any practical
Hmm.
relevance to how we're living our lives today?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that hope should instill in us a desire. So recognize the distinction between hope and desire. The hope is what I'm looking forward to. The desire today, though, to be as conformed to the image of Christ as I can be in this life, without yet having my body free from the sin principle that still dwells within it. But you think about Paul, as you just mentioned, and he says he beats his body into submission. You know, we believe, and I don't know where you fall on the monergistic versus synergistic idea of sanctification, but regardless of that, we
I don't
believe
think there's
that
a
we
such thing
are.
as monergistic sanctification.
Yeah,
That's
so
where I stand.
Philippians 2. Sure. Yeah, so Philippians 2. But regardless of monergistic or synergistic, it is by God's power through
Yeah.
the Spirit that he does this in us.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's why Paul sets up, like in Romans 8, this polar thing of, to live according to the flesh is death, to live according to the Spirit is life. And I don't believe in like final justification or any of that garbage, but I do believe that we we find life, as it were, by having our eyes set on the prize, as Paul says. We're pressing toward the mark and the high calling of Jesus Christ. What is that high calling? It's not antinomianism. It's not I can live any way I want to because I know I'm going to be
Right.
glorified because I'm justified. No, it is that third use of the law, even as we think about God is what. So we talk about gratitude and guidance in the third use of the law. But what is it guidance toward? It is a pathway toward glory. So it does set my heart aright. I mean, if I can meditate upon what I am going to be, as you said, what I am becoming, man, that helps me in my daily walk, because it is not a wishful thinking. It is a certainty that that's where I'm going to be. I've been preaching through Psalm 119, and yesterday we were in verses 41 through 48, and the psalmist, or David, I think David wrote it. He talks about this idea of having the word of God like on his lips and meditating upon the word of God, certainly. But he talks about it in the way of hope. He uses that word, I believe, that idea of hope there. So he meditates upon the word of God, not as something that is static, but something that is living. Of course, we know the scriptures say that about itself, that it's living and active. And so it is something upon which I hope, I meditate upon that hope. It goes back to, I almost referenced you in my sermon. I should have. This idea of preaching truth to ourselves. Well, the truth that we preach to ourselves is not just the truth of justification and sanctification, but glorification as well. And so I think it does help us in our daily walk to meditate upon glory, not in a, how can I say this kindly? Not in a left behind way, like all
Right.
the, sort of crazy features of heaven that we really aren't sure. Streets of gold and, an apartment attached to the Father's house. And that's fine to think about all those things. But really, what is to use the word glory in a different sense, what is the effulgence of those things? What do those things radiate about who God is and about my dwelling in his presence? Am I going to walk on streets of gold? Perhaps that will literally be the case, that I trod on the precious here as that which undergirds my feet in heaven, because God's glory is so much greater than gold. I mean,
Yeah.
whatever that ends up meaning. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, totally. And I think this idea of, well, you mentioned, hope and desire, right? Looking forward to that which is promised and longing for it. The things, if you really desire something, you work for it. Now, and I don't mean that in the sense that you work for your salvation. I mean,
To earn it, right? Sure.
yeah, it's
But
not
you work it out.
meritorious. You work out your salvation
Like
with fear
Philippians
and
2.
trembling.
Right.
You set
Yeah.
your mind on the things above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of the Father. Like you have
that's
a
right.
heavenly,
Yeah.
eternal mindset which governs us here. That's why we let the word of
Yes.
Christ richly dwell within us. It's
Right.
like Colossians and Psalm 119, right? It's all the same.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think like
That's
when
right.
I'm looking forward, when I'm looking ahead to something, whatever it is, maybe it's a concert, maybe it's a date night with my wife.
Yes.
If I'm looking forward to that, I am affected by that beforehand.
Yes.
Like it's
Yeah.
it's
It's a
occupying
great
my
illustration.
thoughts. I'm
Yeah.
preparing myself. I'm getting ready. And the
Yes.
Puritans talked about this, preparing yourself for heaven, right?
Yeah.
There was at least some of the Puritans that I've read would go so far as to say something along the lines of, this is a paraphrase, your walk with the Lord here is going to have an impact on your experience with the Lord in eternity. Now, whether or not that's totally accurate or not is another conversation. But the idea being like, wow, I want to be ready, and I want to be prepared for the rest that we're going to enter into. So preparation is a real thing. Preparation is a constant call of the Christian life. Be prepared for the return, for the day of the Lord, for glory. So that's one of the connection points is how do I get prepared? You know, like in my house, you know, we have like a bunker, and it's got all kind. It's got like we've got like 30 years of food rations in these plastic tubs. We've got like 10 AK-47s, and no, I'm kidding. But you know, like people prepare, right? We have preppers. People prepare for different sort of things.
Yeah, that's right.
But I think the glory is supposed to move us to prepare for it now, not because like, oh well, if I don't prepare for it, I don't get in. It's not exactly that way. But it is a natural. If you truly believe, if you really have faith, if that is your hope and your desire, then it will necessarily have an impact here. It's almost about like, it's not like, oh, I have to teach you to do something right here that will make you somehow long for the future. I think you have to paint such an accurate picture of the future. You have to give them such a clear and compelling vision of what glory is, that they will naturally then go, okay, wow, let's go.
Well, and I want to experience every piece of that I can now. You know what I mean? Like using your concert illustration, if I'm going to see, I don't know, Metallica, what am I going to do? I'm going to listen to every Metallica album because I don't know what songs they're going to sing, you know? And it gets my heart excited to go see whatever band it may be. You know, because I'm experiencing something now that I look forward to in the future. And so I want to squeeze every drop out of what God has given me this side of glory, because I'm excited about what comes next, you know, and then I begin to get charged up because this is what God says is best for me in this life now. And I know that is a glimpse of what's going to be in glory. You know, you were talking about the Colossians and Ephesians passage about, you know, letting the word of Christ dwell within us richly, you know, being led by the Spirit in such a way that we can't help but express that in song to one another in our worship services, in our local gatherings. And I think about that, man. I was just yesterday in worship, I was just almost moved to tears as I was getting up on the stage, just hearing the people sing, and think this is just a snapshot of what it's going to be like in glory. You know, and we'll be able to sing beautifully without any hindrance of my mind's drifting over here off to this or that, you know. So I think that's right. There is an experiential aspect to that for the here and now, that my heart's longing makes me want to, as I said earlier, squeeze every drop of experience in the here and now with a hopefulness to what that is going to be in glory.
That's good, man. That's helpful. And listen, I want us to have a number of conversations on this, because I have a lot of questions that relate to this that I think would be beneficial for me to walk through with you, and therefore I think it might be encouraging for our people as well. There's not a lot out there currently. So you mentioned a couple, Graham Cole, right? Who sounds like a jazz singer from 1965, but which is cool. Yeah. Which is very cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's Graham Cole's book called?
I think it's just called The Doctrine of Glorification and Introduction from Crossway.
Great.
It's one of those small, they've done that like series of introductory works for systematic theology.
It's great. That's great. And then, and you're writing on stuff. I mean, you have a website up, jasonalligood.com, where you have a lot of things that you've written. And I know
well, not a lot of things. There needs to be more. I'm actually, because of you, I'm working on some things that I need to get up there. But I am currently working on a article called "What is Glorification?"
Yeah.
So hopefully I'll get that out here in the next couple of weeks. But my daughter is getting married, so maybe I should say in the next couple of months. So.
Yeah, I don't look forward to those days. I mean, I know it's wonderful. It seems like a lot of stress. And
but it's fun stress. It's good stuff.
Well,
And plus, not everybody started coming in yet. That happens next week. So once all the family members and friends start arriving, then it'll get stressful. Not because we don't love them or want to see them, but anyway.
yeah.
So in
Well,
the next
it's not
next
glory
month
though.
or so, that's right. It's not glory. But I have to tell you, I was just at for the church, and Jared Wilson was talking a little bit about glory, and his daughter Macy got married on this last Friday, and he was talking about that, about the beauty of the marriage supper of the Lamb and all of that, and he was talking about Macy getting married. I'm starting to cry because I'm thinking about Aubrey getting married.
Yeah.
So later that night, I was hanging out with Jared. I'm like, dude, you had me going, man. Like, I was starting to bawl.
It's amazing.
So, yeah.
So, is there any historic works that you would point to? Are there any treatises that come to mind that speak of the eternal state?
Yeah.
I'm putting you on the spot here.
You are putting me on the spot, and I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I would point people to, I mean, this isn't as historical in a sense, but I would go begin with reading like Bavinck or Burkhoff on these matters, William Shedd, just kind of look up in some systematic theologies that area of sanctification, the eternal state. Read The Fourfold State of Man by Thomas Boston.
Yeah.
That would be a work I would encourage people to read. That was pretty influential in my dissertation, but that, especially his part, and again, it's very brief because we don't have a lot of information, but the very end, of course, read the entire work from Boston, but that would be a more historic work. I think The Fourfold State of Man would be a really good place to go as well.
That book, it's just funny because I got that book when I was at Moody. I was building my library, and I started reading it when I went to the wedding of Ken and Lori.
Oh, yeah,
Way.
Ken and Lori. Love them.
Ken
was the drummer in my first band at Moody.
No! Yes, right.
Yeah.
He could drum.
Oh, man, amazing. Yeah.
Ken was smarter than everybody else at Moody. I mean,
Yeah.
he was doing ETS stuff while a student in college. I mean, he was just crazy smart. And by the way,
OT Prophet Talbot.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
But back in the day, like, such a good guy, and he we were trying to wrestling around, so we were going to tackle him. I don't know what we were going to do to him. It took 5 guys to pin him to the ground. Five big guys, good-sized guys, to get one regular-sized Ken Way to the ground. He's a strong mind, strong body, strong heart. I love everything about Ken. But I started reading Boston while I was at his wedding, and not during the ceremony, of course. But it's weird how it's just been stuck in my mind. Like, I can't think of that book or reference that book without thinking about Ken and
that's
Lori
so cool.
getting married. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right.
That's really cool.
Marriages are fun. Very cool. Weddings are usually fun. Marriages are more than fun. Marriages can be a beautiful and wonderful thing. All right. Now listen, people can find you on social media at Dugilla, but you're sort of on a social media sabbatical, right?
Yeah, I'm on a sabbatical right now. I'm at least a month, if not longer.
Okay.
I've toyed around with the idea of, until I have something published, like an actual book coming out, that I might stay off until then. But it has been glorious for my soul to not be distracted by social media. It's only been a week, but the only thing that I've done is when you know Eddie LaRoe, he's a member of our church, and Eddie used to be up in that area, but he sent me a couple of links. He sent me the Costy stuff, and I was like, "What is going on with this?" So I just clicked on a couple of links, but then I've just stayed off.
Yeah.
So, but,
it's not fun. I don't generally enjoy it.
Yeah.
Nope. Well, listen, man. Thanks for coming on. It means a lot.
Brother.
We want to bring you back on and do this more because I think the things that God is teaching you is good for us all to hear. So check out Jason on social media. Leave him a bunch of comments. He's not in there. Just leave him a bunch of comments. If you're not following, follow him. So when he comes back on social media, he's like, "Wow, look at all these new followers," and he'll have to thank me for that. I mean, I will get praise. It'll be my little taste of glory.
We'll get you some cigars or something.
Yeah, you know what? I will take you up on that. But Jason, thanks for coming on, man. We really do appreciate it, and we'll do it again soon.
Hey, thanks a lot, Joe.
All right, for all of you guys that are following us on social media. You know where we're at Doc and Devos, Instagram, Twitter, the whole thing. Visit our website, doctrineanddevotion.com. Be sure to check out videos at YouTube. We got youtube.com/DD podcast. And if you want to support the podcast, if you want to contribute to what we're trying to build here and do, check out doctrineanddevotion.com/all access. There you can read about what we offer every week, devotions 5 days a week, and a special podcast called Banter of Truth, just for our listeners, just for our subscribers. Thanks for listening, guys.